In 1880, the St. Johns River was black, and the waterbanks were heavy with forests. Big oak trees draped with Spanish moss lined the shores, and huge pines towered over the oaks. Everywhere there were birds filling the sky and hiding in the moss among the big snakes. There were alligators and turtles along the shore. As we made our way to the Indian River, water cleared, the trees got smaller, and the ducks and herons more plentiful. The mullet would jump right out of the water and smack into the sides of the boats. The shores were sandy and full of bushes. This is a summary of Lucy Richards' words. It is because of this contrast that her father would come to name their new home Eden. It was the summer of 1879 when Captain Thomas Richards and his son Will sail into the area known currently as Port St. Lucie. Captain Richards will claim his 100 acres and name his plantation Eden. Thomas was a man with a vision. The area had been completely reclaimed by Mother Nature following the failed attempt to settle the area during the Armed Occupation Act of 1842. His goal was to have a productive pineapple plantation, and after much hard work, his efforts paid off. In 1881, the captain sent for his daughter Lucy to help with the homesteading along with his other sons. Over the next decade, Lucy would write letters to her best friend who was still in New Jersey. Some of these letters survived, allowing us a first-hand account of what it was like to be a true Florida pioneer. The Richards home, Eden Grove, expands with its pineapple fields, and the area would soon grow into a community with a post office and general store. In Lucy's letter dated in 1882, she speaks of some of these new neighbors. "We like the Merlins so much, they think of having property here." The Merlins purchased land from Richards and call their plantation Ocean View, but later will be well known as Eden Lawn. Lucy's new husband, Joseph Letourneau, buys the land just south of Eden Lawn from his father-in-law. Letourneau's friend George Lucas purchased 80 acres next to him. George convinces his parents to move, and they will buy the Letourneau land. John and Sarah Lucas will settle the land, plant pineapples, and build a store. At the time, there were no mills in the area, so they have their home built in Maryland and then dismantled and transported by boat to their property in Eden. They will name their plantation Ruxton after their hometown. John Lucas will pass in March of 1893. George will receive 45 acres, and so will his sister, Mrs. Turner. She will go on to run a boarding house called the Netherby, and George will continue to farm. His mother Sarah will return to Maryland, and George will eventually make his way to Jamaica, where he marries. The Florida Agriculturalist in 1897 will publish an article describing what Eden would have looked like. The plantations adjoin each other, making one vast field of vigorous plants, with only wide paths as dividing lines between the respective properties. These fields are mainly situated along the top and on the gentle slopes of the ridge. On the east slope is the ever-beautiful Indian River, and on the west, the Florida East Coast Railway, and beyond that, a broad savanna. Most of the plantations have river and railroad frontage. The packing houses are all situated along the railroad fronts of the plantations, which are very well built and provided with every convenience to facilitate the packing and shipping of the fruit. We can see the Ruxton Plantation pineapple packing plant here, and it was so big that it earned a separate stop on the Florida East Coast Railway. We also see it mentioned here in 1902 on an advertisement for the Netherby Inn as a passenger stop. The Ruxton Plantation will be sold to the Saunders. In the same letter that Lucy mentions the Merwins, she also describes Nathan Saunders. Captain Nate Saunders of Wisconsin has been here with a party fishing. They are going to buy land and live here, quite near us. Nathan will pass on July 25th of 1897 from appendicitis. His wife, Sarah Helen, will file for control of his estate that includes a large fishing company, as he left no will. She will waste no time in making it one of the nicest plantations on the ridge. We see her improvements continue in 1902 when it states that she has put in a new road and lawn. She does well for many years and then, due to some unfortunate circumstances, will go into debt and have to sell everything. She will live with neighbors and friends until her death in 1939. Charles Edison, a partner in the stock brokerage firm Lewis, Bell and Company in New York City, will marry and move to Eden. In 1907, they purchased the Ruxton Plantation from Mrs. Saunders. Charles will bring his family down to live on the 46-acre parcel and quickly renovates and makes improvements to the homestead. By 1910, the Eden area is the main source of pineapples internationally, and in 1916 there was a decision made to centralize the packing to represent a more cohesive and quality product. The Blue Diamond Fruit Company was picked to represent the area. Charles and Maud welcomed their son on September 30th, 1916, Louis Bell Edison. They will go on to be prominent members of the community, helping to develop the area and having many social events at the Ruxton Plantation. In 1929, Maud will suffer a fatal heart attack. In 1930, just the 74-year-old Charles and his 13-year-old son Louis are alone in the big house, and it will stay that way until 1941 when Charles is buried alongside his wife. Louis will inherit the plantation, and in 1942 he will marry a local girl named Marie, and they will occupy the property and rename it Mary Bell in her honor. Marie will pass in 1972, and less than a year later, Louis marries Constance Owens. What happens to these plantations in the modern day? Well, in 1985, descendants of the Richards family were still hoping to renovate Eden Grove, but after surviving over 100 years, it would succumb to a fire that burned it to the ground. It is now the home to newer homes. Just down the street, Eden Lawn, having a long life as a resort and then a restaurant, will be sold many times with lots of grand ideas, but it still sits as it did so many years ago. Then there is the Ruxton, which Louis lived in until his death. In this 1972 article, he talks about donating the house to the St. Lucie County as a museum. His widow finally sells in October of 1989, and in 1991 there were plans to redevelop the area. In the same year, the historian Sandra Thoreau will visit the plantation, and on this visit she will discover some blue diamond pineapple wrapping sheets in an old barn. In 1995, Steve Carr, founding member of the Yesteryear Village, will be on a hike and find the abandoned pineapple barn that the packing sheets were found in. The building will now be saved and moved to West Palm Beach to be part of the 9-acre living museum town. The historic barn will be open to the public during the 1996 South Florida Fair. It will first be used as a Confederate museum. Today you will see it as a learning center for introducing the pineapple industry to our next generations, as it is the pineapple industry that helped grow the South Florida area. As of 2024, you can now see the 100-year-old wrapping paper hanging in the barn. The water tower was also saved and transported, but years later was damaged in Hurricane Irma. We encourage you to take a ride out to the South Florida Fairgrounds and tour Yesteryear Village with all of its historic buildings and history it has to tell. Yesteryear Village is open most weeks, Thursday through Saturday, but I encourage you to check their hours and events on the southfloridafair.com website before going. You can also check out my Yesteryear Village playlist for more videos like this. I want to thank my new friend Sandra Thoreau and her book Historic Jensen and Eden on Florida's Indian River. It helped me to fill in the gaps. If you want to know more about this area, I encourage you to check out her other books. Also wanted to thank her for her donation of the pineapple wrapping paper and the use of the photos of the buildings as it stood before its journey. I also appreciate the signed copy of Memories of Eden, which was a wealth of information. I look forward to working with her again in the future. I gleaned more insight from Greg and Alice Lockhart's research they did on the Ruxton Plantation that helped me confirm what I had found and led me on the path to find more. How surprised was I to see this train sitting right next to the pineapple barn. It came from the railroad that was in Disney's Fort Wilderness. If you have followed this channel for a while, you'll know that this has to be the next video that I do.